What's good, everyone? Last week I got to see the original Alien for its 45th anniversary in the theater, and they played a 4K remaster, and it was awesome. It was very cool. It looked brand new. It was basically perfect. There were, two small problems with it. One, there are a couple shots of the Nostromo that looked a little bit clunky because they're kind of, I don't know if it's stop motion or if they just tried to drag an image of the spaceship across the screen. But however they made it originally, it doesn't really hold. It's only like a few shots that lasts like 2 seconds, but it's a minor thing. The other problem is you can remaster a video all you want, but there's only so much you can do for the audio, and so the audio doesn't sound bad when you're watching it, on like the original recording with all the film grain and all that. But when it's in 4K and the movie looks better than newer movies, and it still has like this old sound, it's a little bit distracting at first. It's not movie breaking, but it was something I noticed. Now this is only my second time seeing Alien, and I have not seen the unrated director's cut. I was going to watch that cut, and then they put it back in theaters using the original theatrical cut. I'm like, well, I can't pass up this opportunity. So here we are with the normal theatrical cut again. Now, while I am more of an Aliens guy, I definitely think Alien is still a great, great film. So I'm just going to kick it off with my brief, very few negatives. The main reason I don't prefer this movie is no matter how good everything else is, the pacing is just a little too slow for me. And it can at times lose my attention, and as immersive as watching these characters go through these perfectly produced sets, it can get a little bit boring when that's kind of all they're doing. It's like they're building tension, but when you go on so long, just like whoa. So that's the main problem. It was better this time just because seeing it in a theater immediately draws your attention more. Seeing it remastered draws your attention more. But still, I found myself losing attention every now and then. Just pacing isn't for me. And my final, probably biggest problem with this movie is there is not one, not two, but three times that this movie uses the classic horror trope of you think the monster is going to jump out and kill someone, and then it's a cat. The cat jumps out of the closet. I hate that so much. And they do it three times. Why is there a cat in space? I like the cat. Everybody likes the cat. But why? Why is the cat just doing this every time? It's so annoying. Either show the alien or show nothing, but don't have a cat. Now, I do have one mixed aspect on this movie, and that is the characters. I think the characters are all done really well. They all serve their purpose. They're all interesting and unique in their own ways. But there's not really a main character. It's sort of like you're always with the whole crew, and it's not really until the third act that Ripley becomes the main character, and Ripley just isn't as interesting in this as she is in Aliens, and it's like none of the characters really have their own moment to shine on their own. But I never really found myself attaching to any one character. Just when your movie has all these different characters at all these different places on the spaceship, and none of them are the central focus, it's just a little bit harder to connect to the story in that way. None of them are bad. All of them are entertaining, unique, just none of them are super standout. Except for the villain. So that's going to bring me into my positives, which is basically the rest of the review. Now, the first time I saw Alien, like a year or two ago, I did not know that Ash was a robot. I did not see that twist coming. And when I saw it, it blew my mind. It was insane. It was awesome. I couldn't believe it. And it just reframes the whole movie. And now watching it for the second time, knowing that he is a robot who was always meant to capture this alien and not, the crew is expendable and he knew it the whole time. It's it changes so much of the movie and how you see this character. And he's just the worst. It's a villain that you hate. It's you're this guy's, he's a nerd, but whatever, the first time you see it. And then now you know that he's a villain. It's oh, you are the worst. You are doing all of this on purpose, and I hate you. So that is a well-written character, but he is an antagonist, so it's not really the same as having a good protagonist that you can connect to. Moving on, I want to talk about the set design and how this movie looks perfect and like you're actually on another world. Like you're in the Nostromo, and it just looks like a real spaceship, and the spaceship itself is sort of a character because it's sort of like all run down and rusty, and not everything works perfect, and the crew's small, and you can tell a lot about this universe just by the way everything looks and acts without actually being told or shown anything about the universe, where you can sort of tell that, there's probably a corrupt government that doesn't treat their workers well. And that goes into some of the themes that we'll talk about later that were intentionally put into the movie. And then, you go to the alien world, and it actually takes you to an alien world. Like, it feels like it's a real place. And then you see the spaceship off in the distance, and it looks just huge, even though it's a miniature, just like crescent shape. And then just the scale of it, the way it's shot, all the camera placement is perfect, and it makes everything look huge and like horrifying. Like, you don't know what you're gonna find in there and if it's dangerous. And of course, it is dangerous, and it kills everyone. But then you get inside the spaceship, and there's these huge tunnels that just go on forever. It sort of induces that megalophobia, like, this is just so huge, I can't handle it kind of feeling. And then you go into the big room with the space jockey, where, there's this huge skeleton, and everything on the spaceship sort of looks both mechanical and organic at the same time. And you see this big skeleton, and you can't tell where the skeleton ends and the machine starts. And this guy just like raises so many questions. Like, he's so huge. It's like, what was this civilization like? Why do they have all these alien eggs on the ship? What were they doing? How did they all die? But you see all this, and it never answers the questions, at least in this movie. And it just adds like this mysterious vibe where you aren't like, it's not setting it up to give you an answer. It's just setting you up to ask a question and giving you the fear of the unknown, sort of. And it's scenes like these that like really draw me in. And then the parts where they're just sort of wandering around their own spaceship doing nothing, those are the parts where the slow pacing kind of loses me. But the way all of these sets are so perfectly crafted, and just had so much effort put into them to make them look real, like this is an actual place that is out there in the universe. And especially with the addition of this 4K remaster, it just makes it a timeless film where it just looks real, and you can't beat real. It's like newer movies, they have CGI, and then 5 years later it like may look good now, and then 5 years later it looks like trash. And there are other practical effects where maybe it looked good in the 90s, and then you're like, oh, that looks like a puppet, or that looks fake. And there's almost none of that in this movie. There are a few shots of the alien suit that aren't perfect, but as for the sets, it's timeless. Like, it looks real. All right, and in preparation for this review, I decided to watch the documentary Memory: The Origin of Alien, that sort of talks about not really the making of the movie, but how the movie got made, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of talk about the writers and designers and directors and where all their inspiration came from, more than the actual like 6 months or however long of production and like standard bonus features where you actually see like stunts and stuff. It's more like the psychological side, and like how H.R. Geiger was inspired by dreams to make the alien. But this movie really enlightened me and on as how many more people were involved with this besides Ridley Scott. Like, this whole time I thought this was like Ridley Scott's idea, he wrote it and everything, but no, it's actually mostly Dan O'Bannon's idea, who I've never heard of this guy before. But he basically wanted to make one of, if not the first, serious sci-fi films, because at the time, this is like mid-70s, everything had been kind of like a silly, bright, colorful adventure, and he wanted to make something more serious and realistic. And that idea paid off, if you couldn't tell. And of course, the script went around to a bunch of people and eventually got picked up by Ridley Scott, who directed it. And of course, a lot of the designs were made by H.R. Geiger, infamously. And there was one other artist who, made stuff like the chest bursters, like the smaller creatures. I can't remember his name. But all these different people were inspired by so many different things that all came together to one very unique thing that has stood the test of time. And the documentary talks about a lot of different themes of the time that sort of permeated its way into the movie. There's a lot of inspiration from Greek mythology, but also from modern day, at the time, work conditions. It was pointing out how the engineers on the ship weren't as respected by the higher ups, even though they were right every time, and the whole crisis of the alien could have been averted if they just listened to them. There's a lot of interesting stuff like that in there. There's also other stuff that I did not get. It's very well known that all the designs of the alien and how the life cycle of it is very sexual. I didn't get why they did that. They were saying it reflected the guilt of a patriarchal society, whatever that means. I don't get it. I feel like I probably wouldn't like it if I did get it. So whatever, I don't really care. But a bunch of the other stuff I did find very interesting. If you find it interesting, like Alien, I definitely recommend the documentary Memory. If you somehow couldn't tell, I do really like this movie. Like I said, I am more into Aliens than Alien, but they're both great. I will be doing a review of Aliens sometime in the future, doing a review series up to Romulus. I was going to do it a little bit later, closer to the release, but they put it in theaters, so I had to start early. I love the movie. I love it even more now I got to see it in 4K and kind of want to buy it on 4K now so I can watch the perfect version every time. But I give this movie an 8 out of 10. Just get rid of the cat and it goes up to 9. Fix the pacing and it goes up to 10. It's a perfect movie. Fortunately, you can't really do that unless Unrated Cut did, which I highly doubt, but I'll find out one of these days. But yeah, that's about all. Thanks for watching.